I'm not going to do Baya.
Oh, okay.
I'm retiring it. And
Okay.
there's reasons for that, but just so you don't awkwardly.
Okay, we don't have to do Baya. It's okay.
It's okay.
It was my favorite part of the show.
Can we do like a serious episode, like with these vocal effects, like, you know, just really hide my emotions in pizza and robot voices?
That would be great. I think we should do that. I think we should just call that the show Pizza and Robot Voices.
Yeah. And every time, every Halloween, everyone only tunes in for one episode. That's all I get for listens.
Right.
It's just like, we'll see what voices get used on the Halloween show.
It's like Homestar Runner, basically. Everybody just waits for the
remember
Halloween
that.
episode. Yeah,
That's brilliant. The good old days of the early internet.
that's right. Flash.
Well, welcome to My Modern Myth with not just Eric, but Adam's back. You.
Me?
Yeah. I mean, if you were
Yeah.
here earlier in the studio, you would have seen a boner. Not his, but a bone man in the chair.
You may still see parts of Mr. Skeletor. Well, let's call him. But
Seen
he
some
is sitting, he's
phalanges.
joining me, giving me emotional support back there. Doing a good job there, Jason Skeletor.
Attaboy. Well, today is going to be an interesting topic. Not about skeletons, but the skeletons in the closet and how we rectify the past hurts and move into the future. Not entirely, but hey, it's close enough of a tie-in, right? So what we're going to talk about today is the story that you're writing. My Modern Myth is all about writing the best life story possible through using your mind and your body, and also recognizing through your mind what story you're writing. And I think there's a lot of keys that we don't pick up on, and I'm going to share why this is important to me and why, as you do anything professionally, while you commit yourself to a cause, there's a constant redressing. There's a constant redirection that is almost like a recalling you to define purpose. And it's not to run away, but those are the two options: is double down or retreat. And sometimes that message comes to you because you're not even buying what you're selling. You're not even acting out what you believe in. You're just shelling it out to someone else and calling that service. And that's what I felt, was that I wasn't even applying my own messaging to my own situation. I was just sharing it with everybody else and then lying awake at night thinking I was a failure because of metrics, because of views, because of likes. Well, if they don't like what I'm saying, then my message must be flawed. And so I'm sitting in my room at night, and this is a 2-day depression I was having. And I had this moment where the clouds broke. And, well, I should say they formed, really. And this is the weird, nuanced part of it. We all say negative things to ourselves, things we would never say to our friends or family. But we beat ourselves down. And I was saying things and trying to stop it and be like, oh, we don't say these things to ourselves. And if you say it in your head, you'll believe it. But I also realized if I don't bring it out and give myself permission to beat myself up, I'm not going to know what I really feel about myself. Mm-hmm. And so I was safe, 2 a.m, and I let myself have it. Okay, who am I? And what came out, not verbatim, was, Eric Beach, you are a bitch who will quit at the first sign of discomfort. You will always choose comfort over anything, and you'll never achieve anything in your life because anytime things get a little bit difficult, you're running away. You're pathetic. You're a fake. This is the gist of what I said. And when I heard that, I went and spiraled. It hurt. Mm-hmm. Doesn't sound like a nice epitaph on my tombstone. But also, I realized in that moment that that's the story. That's my whole shtick. Is the inner narrative, the inner monologue, is the story you're writing with your life. It's what's driving you. And so if that's what I'm embodying and I'm telling people to take hold of that, well, I better do that too. So I asked myself, okay, let's say that's true. That's how I really believe about myself. What am I going to do about it? Mm-hmm. I'm just going to keep living that story, or am I going to do something about it? Well, I'm going to do something about it. And I said, well, the new story that I want to live is that I'm a man of confidence in purpose. That I rest in that purpose, and because I rest in that purpose, I am confident, and I do the things that I need to do, whether I'm comfortable or not, to achieve that purpose, to move forward on that goal. It's not about success or failure. It's not about affirmation. I'm doing the things that I need to do because I know I need to do them, not because anyone told me to. And that made me happy. And I said, I'm starting right now. I can't do anything about it except go to sleep. And I'm going to rest in that. And that tomorrow is going to be a new day for me to live out these values. And it didn't matter if it's going to be tidying the house or starting that blog or sitting down and really figuring out and wrestling to the ground what modern myth is and what I want it to be. All of that stuff is on the table, but it's far better than sitting and doing nothing for 4 hours except for menial tasks and never driving myself further to or closer to purpose. And so that encapsulates a ton of realization, but the one that I wanted to tee up for you because it was a really huge gut check for me, and I want to turn it over to you after this to kind of maybe reflect on some of the stuff that you're doing and those messages that have stopped you from also pursuing passion, because we all are amazing storytellers. The message I got was, we talk about heroes a lot. In My Modern Myth, you are the hero of your story. You're not the victim. You're not the villain. You're not the accuser or the martyr or the savior. Like, none of those are valuable and healthy ways to be. You're the hero. And so what does the hero do? Every story you've ever seen never starts with the hero in the lap of luxury, has everything they need, just thinks they're wonderful but not egocentric, and then gets a mission to go out and become really uncomfortable. I choose that. No, they never do. They start running through the streets in the middle of a storm to the temple of their god, falling on their knees, crying, "Why have you forsaken me?" And then the lightning crashes and something changes in their heart and they're called to action. They're never called to action out of the garden of glory. It's always in those dark moments where you're like, I'm sick of this. I am tired of living this way and this hurts. And I'm tired of it. I feel abandoned. Well, now I get to rescue myself and I get to tell myself a new story. So this is the origin of a hero. So if I'm going to be a hero, if you're going to be a hero, you have to be the one that has the zeitgeist in yourself and says enough is enough. And this is a story I choose to write and rededicate myself to every day until that story changes. Because every time you evolve, it will change. So reflecting on that, Adam, we've been on this journey for years now. I don't know if you want to talk about how that's evolved over time or just something recent, but like, how does that resonate with you?
I think that you make an interesting point with regard to kind of like that first part where you were talking about you let yourself have it. And I was almost applauding, well, I mean, I was internally applauding your courage on that, because I think that that's an important part of our transformation. We have to break ourselves down, get to that level of vulnerability, and ask ourselves, I mean, not to say that, but internally ask ourselves and really be critical of ourselves, not to the point where we're going to like break ourselves down to like a pulp, but for the purpose of seeing where that transformation needs to take place. One of the reasons I talk about flow, and I know flow is an overused word, it is, but there's also a very well-researched topic. And Stephen Kotler has 4 phases of flow, and the first phase being struggle. We have to struggle before we can get into that phase of what we want to do. So, and then I think the second phase was pizza, which you're about to have. So, second phase is pizza. Then we can get into flow. But so yeah, struggle, pizza, flow. But seriously, I mean, that struggle phase is really important. And then it gives us this opportunity to kind of break ourselves down and recognize, at least from that high level, as long as we're not doing it with shame, as long as we're breaking ourselves down with purpose, we can actually see what huge percentage of us we want to give up in order to pursue that new thing. Because whatever we're going to pursue in the future, the reason that it's scary is because we have to give up a lot of ourselves. We have to give up a lot of who we are. We can't take that piece of us with us. And this is talked about a lot. Benjamin Hardy has a book now called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And in it, he talks about that 80% of you that you need to give up to take yourself to that next level. You have to give that up, and it's scary. And it's nothing to shame. It doesn't mean that you're a bitch if you can't do that. But it's a choice at any time of, all right, well, am I willing to give up this part of myself to pursue the next part? Am I willing to give up the discomfort that I know, the discomfort that's comfortable, and pursue this discomfort that is unknown?
The old comfort versus the discomfort, I love that, because it's true how it seems like it wouldn't be possible to just, it's not conscious, but it is unconscious. then I'm going to stay in this misery because I know it, because the human needs of security or, consistency, it's real. Like, we need to have this world be the same, whatever it is. And if it's negative, hey, it's negative. I'm going to rest in it.
As long as we're still alive in this discomfort, we're still alive. I mean, so whatever's that's working from an evolutionary standpoint. We're alive, and that's like the baseline need that we have to fulfill. And so getting into that unknown discomfort, well, that's risky. What if I do die? And that's like what our brains are telling us. Even though we're not risking our lives by doing that. We're just maybe risking, our livelihoods or things like that. But it is still, it feels like that for us. And I go through that. I mean, I go through that daily. It's like, within the podcast that I'm running, it's like I've hit this plateau of, listenership, and it's like I cannot break through it, and I don't understand why. And you get into that comparison mode of, well, what are they doing? What are they? And it's like, all right, so it's just like, and then you get into that mode of like, oh yeah, I'm a piece of shit. This isn't freaking working. Nobody wants to hear what I'm saying, but who cares? And like, and then it's like, okay, so those are, and I think you said it great. Those are those moments where those transformations come a little bit. And so now I'm kind of looking at one of those moments too. It's just like, all right, well, how do you know if that's the right transformation? Those are the questions that are really tough to answer.
Yeah, because we always want to make the perfect pivot. And unfortunately, pivots are small because they're meant to be small looks and glimpses, because radical change, I don't believe, is sustainably the answer. I think there's some things. I'll give an example from 2008 when I attempted suicide. This is a radical shift that I'm not going to do that anymore, but like, that's not an option for me. But it radically changed my life, but the pain was still there. So it changed it, but it didn't. So that's a radical change of addressing the fact that was dark. We can't go back there. This pain's going to be a backpack that I'm going to carry with me, but I'm walking on this path now. And so when we reevaluate the story and check in, this is the problem. We don't do it every day. This is why you have a meditation, a prayer practice, a journaling practice. You do something every day because you have to have touchstone moments. And if you do it once a year, like a New Year's resolution, a year of time went by and we drifted further and further off the path. Right. So when we have these recorrects and you like, what's the story I'm writing today? And it's not always that intense, but sometimes it starts out that way. Yeah. Because you don't know where you were on this journey. If it's the first time you're addressing the story you've been running for your whole life, it's probably going to be a pretty intense process, and you don't want to just jump in cannonball style. You have to take sips from the cup and not let yourself just have free reign. Like you said, like, you don't want to beat yourself to a pulp when you feel like you're so fragile already. Like, I have been working for 10 years on this roughly. And I mean, this is the last night. It was another moment of surging forward. I call them surges, not radical changes, because you know how it is. You're on Iron Man or something, and you get a Coke, not a Pepsi, but you get a flat Coke, and all of a sudden you get a little or Shasta. Did you say?
Yeah, they have to give that Shasta now. That's only the best for those Iron Man athletes. None of that RC Cola bullshit.
Shasta. I'll have a Shasta. I'm getting awful tired out here. And an orange slice. Where's the orange slices?
Well, don't they have orange slices in these races anymore? Sorry.
But seriously, orange slices have never tasted good in my life until I ran Ironman France. And I was like, this is the fruit from the Garden of Eden, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the one that took down mankind.
Well, I think it was proven that the oranges that were eaten by Adam and Eve came from that region of France, in the south of France. And that is why they founded the city of Nice where they did, was because of the godly oranges. That was the original form of the nectar of the gods came from oranges.
Right. And they named it Nice because they mispronounced it, and they were like, nice, Adam.
Nice. Yes.
Way to go.
Right. And I know all of that because my name is Adam. Yes.
Yeah. That's right. All Adams have a collective unconscious knowledge set.
We do. We're connected throughout the history.
Can you imagine if that was true? All Erics, I was connected to their intellect
Yeah.
and their experience.
You, came over and is one of the first was one of the first people on American soil and got frickin' overshadowed by that goddamn Columbus guy.
A loser.
Yeah.
Viking heritage.
Yeah. Yes.
We were just like, it's not that great, and went back to Norway, I guess.
Right.
It's no Scandinavia. I can't do a Scandinavian accent, so I don't even know why I tried. Well, I try to do like the Disney, you're not the first to pass this fade. But then it's like a vampire, so it doesn't really work. Some I can't do, some I can. Whatever.
I think it's like it's incredibly charming how that Viking accent comes out. It's kind of a Midwest charm too.
Yes, right.
It's a little of both, which is pretty cool. I like it.
It's to make up for the violence. I do apologize.
Right.
For all of
We are the sweetest
raping and the
Vikings ever.
pillaging and the burning of the villages and stealing. My bad. Sorry, Scandinavia. I'm 40% Scandinavian, so I can make those jokes.
Yeah, I think I'm a good 4%. So I believe that gives me a day out of the year to be able to do
You
that.
used it up. So
I
you're done.
have, but it was worth it. It was worth it.
I'm going to be watching you, Adam.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't have any more jokes about my people.
No, I'm moving on to Germany tomorrow, which will be fun.
Heritage is a story,
Right.
For sure. It becomes a generational gift or curse, depending on how you want to unpack that. But for us in the immediate now, there's this process of like asking yourself very practically, reflect on today. What story did you write today? Because chances are you're not going to spiral, hopefully, too far if you just look at today.
Yeah.
Like the story
Yeah.
I wrote today was, I didn't nail it, but I accomplished some things, and I feel like a plan. I have a mission, and I know my next step, and for that I'm grateful. And that's the story I wrote today, and didn't hurt anybody. I didn't meet my expectations, and that's okay, because at least I had them, and they were positive expectations.
Yeah. And yet here you are, being vulnerable and honest about this whole process on this show, making that step forward, which is a big step forward. So I think that I feel like reflection is a big element of a lot of how we look at our story. And I think you're right, because a lot of times if we want to achieve something, we spend a whole hell of a lot of time thinking about where we want to go. And ultimately, if we're not careful about it, we think of a lot of the times being frustrated about not already being where we want to be in the future. Sure. And what we neglect in that case is reflecting on where we've been, where we've come from, and how far we've come in that time. And I think it's easy to pick and choose the areas where we aren't necessarily successful, or those areas where we can beat ourselves up. Like, oh, I don't have the followers I should have or I want, or anything like that, or I don't have this or I don't have that. But we kind of really quickly forget about the really freaking awesome things we did with discipline, like being a freaking Ironman triathlete, or starting these podcasts in the first place, which 99.999% of people will never do, or becoming an awesome musician, or doing whatever it is, just starting, having those thoughts and just starting. That's a big and powerful step I think we have to reflect on and make that part of our story in more measure than we make the part where we are kind of breaking ourselves down. Those breaking ourselves down parts are important, but in the same way that like we need to do that therapeutically and not punitively, because I think the therapeutic way is more controlled. Like you said earlier, like when you first started, this was in a controlled way. It was 2 a.m. You're in a controlled place. It's safe. Everything like that. Blah blah blah. Worked out, and then you were able to work through it completely. And I mean, I know that we could talk about the way that works. Like sometimes we break ourselves down in psychedelic experiences or things like that to come out the other side and like, oh, have that realization. But I think those are important. It's important to reflect on a lot of those things as equally as visualizing where we want to go.
I agree, and I think the daily check-ins is great. I also want to mention that the whole reason I was, safe to do that is because of doing other things to ensure that. And I still, even though I question my own loyalty to my belief system or my own personal philosophy, where I'm like, I'm not living what I'm preaching, I still am because I'm reflecting. Like you said, reflecting is rolling reflections is my jujitsu centered version of this show. I'm combining the two elements to be my modern myth, and the rolling reflection edition. So I can have that all here so I can show how sport can become this arena, because mind, body, story. And if I'm doing something with my body, if it's walking around the neighborhood, I don't care what it is, how simple it is. I'm even doing these bird dogs, little exercises, just reps of 10 just for my low back. Doing something good for your body puts you in a positive state of mind. Doesn't have to be grand. Doesn't have to be an Ironman. If you can just find purpose in why you're doing it, this is enough of moving the body until you can do more. And I can do a lot, right?
Right.
But I'm doing less to still make myself feel better, because as I do more, my body hurts and I can't do the less.
Yeah.
And so now I can't do anything. So this process is also, like you talk about, the story of 110% versus 80%. That's a story. Why do you need to go 110%? This is a valid thing for you to sit down and write the story that tells you you're nothing unless.
Right.
Because that's the
I
way
want to
it
give
usually goes.
110% because I want to punch my knees in the dick. Yeah.
That's what everyone probably says, is I want to hurt myself.
That's right. Exactly.
That's the underlying principle. And also, the weird thing is, you get that story out, but then you kind of, sometimes it's clear. Sometimes you have to ask why. Because it might sound good, but if you're not feeling good about it, you need to ask, well, why do I believe that? Why is this my answer? And that's usually because, even though the truth is, I want to be elite, I want to win, I want to be the best,
Yeah.
These sound good, but whenever someone says that, I'm like, but really, why? Why do you have to be the best? Because to be the best, if you don't want that, then you're wasting your time. And I'm like, well, then only one person wins and everybody else is a waste of time. Like, no, the majority of people, the 99% of the people are like me. And I mean, hell, you didn't win your Ironman race to get to Kona.
I know. I fucking suck, man.
I know.
It's terrible.
So what was the point?
What was the point? I was such a loser.
Oh my God.
Can
Can you
break
imagine?
myself down over that tonight?
It's like, hey, good job on that.
Yeah,
Third
good
place.
job. Yeah, dick play. Two people in this world are better than you, and they don't. And they're doing something different tonight that you're not doing. They're probably pushing harder today than you ever were.
But then again, maybe, just maybe, you got the Sebastian Kienle, Patrick Lange situation where third place was happier than first place, because
right.
First place, their splits were kind of weak.
Yeah.
These aren't Kona numbers. You got to get those up. Otherwise, you're going to be like 15th in Kona. And who wants that?
I know.
What story is that? Is that a good story?
Yeah, I didn't see first or second place in Santa Rosa get onto a TV show that aired at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday and then got canceled from YouTube and is nowhere to be found ever again.
Yes,
I don't think they got that luxury now, did they?
Okay, good point.
Yeah. See,
can you laugh at your own story?
Yes.
Can you agree that our core values of growth, vulnerability, ownership, and laughter. And if you take yourself too seriously, I think you become the 110%er, because everything has to be all out to, maybe convince yourself that you gave everything you could give. And maybe then you're so tired and beat up that there's nothing else that can possibly enter your mind besides whatever you just did. And at that point, there's a couple of those people in the world that can do it, and that's great. But we have to, just like you were talking about, not comparing yourself to someone else in their stats or whatever it is that you're comparing it to. Maddie, please. Her nails are like this new microphone. It just like is hungry for nail tapping sounds, and she just walks around. I liken it to her just flipping me the bird because I'm distracted and not petting her.
Oh, so it's more of like a defiant walking. It's not like she's tiptoeing but being annoying anyway. It's like It's like, I don't want to bother Dad, but I'm tiptoeing. But it's like, fuck off, Dad.
Yeah, couldn't help but notice the dish is empty. Yeah, I'll be back.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad.
Now-
Yeah, still sitting on the computer, huh? Q. wait. Q hard. I f***ing hate you, just like that. That's how my
Pretty
dog
good at
feels
that.
about me.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's test that out. Fuck. Ah, see.
Son of a. This doesn't work. You don't have a button, okay? A freaking delayed sensor. So if you can't laugh at your own story or your own life, it's rough sledding, and I've lived that for a long time. But even now, I still struggle with it because it's really subjective to what the situation is that I can laugh at. But I am like, I want you to take me super serious right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm connecting at a heart level. Don't make fun of that. And there are certain arenas where I will protect that, where someone's opening up and then someone makes light of it because they're uncomfortable. And I'm like, no. This is not the time for that.
Right.
You know, maybe we can laugh later, but right now we have to hold space. You know, we don't want to cut the tension every time, but sometimes it's very appropriate. And so we need that jester archetype, which is it's the secret archetype that no one really talks about. They give it credit to the magician, but I think it's a whole separate energy in the Jungian archetype perspective that is like this fifth one that kind of circles all of them and says, hey, remember to laugh. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't be too sad. Don't be too high and mighty in the spirit. You know, you're not that big of a warrior, you know, and it's kind of jabbing us to say, it's not that serious.
Yeah. And I've noticed I need that jester. I mean, even when I'm trying to be funny, I need that jester in my life because lately, you know, on social media, I've found that I was making a little bit of headway with video puns that I'm doing. And so I've started posting more of those because I've had some requests of some people saying, you should do more of that. Okay, I'll do more of that. And it's been nice. But today I noticed that that one of my videos was flagged as unoriginal, and it pissed me off because it wasn't getting the views that it usually would. And so I find about this stupid pun that I posted that was about something stupid. I'm getting pissed off, and I'm like, why is TikTok pushing down my post because it's unoriginal, it's stupid, and all that? And I'm just like I'm taking seriously this thing I inherently started doing because I didn't want us to take it seriously. It was this has been my silent revolution against all of the bullshit that goes on TikTok. And thank you.
Trying to keep up with it.
But I was, but you know, it's like, and to your point about like being, like living into what you want to, you know, what you want to be. I see all this stuff and it frustrates me, and I want to what I want to represent is somebody that is not giving into this fear or helping people to get beyond this fear. And I see people that are operating on social media or even the social media kind of space altogether that is encouraging, that is promoting all of this polarization, this fear that exists in our society. You see it right now with everything that's happening in our world. And I'm like looking at myself and I'm saying, oh shit, darn it. I mean, dang it, beep. Anyway, that I am avoiding that because of fear, because I don't want to alienate people, or I don't want to call it out, or I don't want to invoke anything. And so it's like, okay, so those points of reflection, I was having those too. And it's just and it's interesting. So yeah,
it is. But the story goes, you know, the underlying driver of what you're doing, how you're living your life. Absolutely. But also it can be hyper-focused to how am I engaging in this conversation with this social media post, with this reaction? What is the story I'm writing? Oftentimes when I get mad, it's because I'm writing a story of I'm untouchable. I'm beyond reproach. You don't get to make fun of me or question me. And then I go, boy, who the hell am I to say that? You know what? It's just because we all want to be special. We all want to be significant. That's the human need that we have, is significance. And metrics on social media are a sugary bit of significance. And unfortunately, it doesn't paint the whole picture because my engagement is on the decline. I was killing it, Adam. And I don't know what happened. I didn't really change much, but it starts to go down, and I say, wow, I'm not enough anymore. Mm-hmm. That's my story, is like, I should quit because I'm not effective and nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
And interestingly, that perception that you have is based on a click of a button that is changing the algorithm of a system, and has absolutely nothing to do with your self-worth.
Right.
Yeah.
But it somehow intertwines in our DNA,
Right.
this is an interesting fact that was shared with me, and it blew me away. Our brain is so smart. It will key us in with dopamine and other things to make us do the behavior again. We're very, very animalistic that way. Cell phones, this never happened to people before cell phones. You will get phantom buzzing vibrations on your leg in your pocket because there's such a strong dopamine connection in your brain to when your phone vibrates and the excitement that you get, that even if you don't have your phone, your leg will vibrate in a low grade way where you're like, did I just get a call? Because it wants that hit.
Holy cow, man. That's frightening. This thing is scary.
Don't throw me on the floor, Adam. You need me.
Something like that.
Skeletor, save me.
Yes, please. What? I love those memes with Skeletor saying something and then just running away.
I love him. That's funny.
But that's the unoriginal thing. That's a TikTok thing. That wasn't an Instagram flag.
Yeah, no, it was TikTok, and it was about something that was like inherently unoriginal. Like, I was using a template that hundreds of thousands of other people are using. It's the dog one that's like looking around and saying, I just used that template on one of my pictures, and I just said something on it, and it said, oh no, this is unoriginal. I'm like,
But
okay,
TikTok is the home of unoriginal. It's
pretty much
the home of the challenge and the trend of copying everybody, so we can watch the same thing 100,000 different times, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I
but
must have done it
whatever.
wrong.
I don't know. I did it. I'm doing everything social media wrong because I'm not playing the game. I was on a podcast yesterday where the host mentioned like, I can help you out. He has like 1.5 million followers, and he was telling me that, and he mentioned like, because I had to play the game for the first 500,000 and like do the promotional, like all this kind of stuff, and then the other one's hit, and I'm like, that sounds horrible. I'm sorry. I mean, respect to you, and I understand it. I get it. You're playing the game, and that's totally fair. I get it, but like that just sounds horrible. I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, I get it if you want the celebrity, but like I don't know. I don't want the celebrity. I don't. I just want the message out there, and unfortunately, these platforms control the platform controls the platform, which is not a great place. Like, it used to just be a soapbox on the corner and you stand up. Back in my day, that's what used to. Where's your old guy voice on that thing, by the way? Do you have that?
We could do.
Back in my day, we had to do it the hard way. It was 1925 and the Coliseum had been built fresh. I guess that would
be the closest I could come to.
That does sound
timing.
exactly what I was envisioning a soapbox speech was going to be. So yeah, but anyway, that's what it used to be. But now it's now we're all subject to the bad things. I don't know. But
what are you gonna do?
I don't know. I don't know. I just went high pitched Italian there. See, I've already satisfied my two criteria or two of my quotas today. Norwegian people or Scandinavian people and Italians, so I won't be able to do the Italians next week. So
modern myths and accents.
Yep, that's all right.
Fulfilling your heritage in one episode, so killing it, I guess.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Ooh,
and it's
hey, we just did that like scooch our butts up kind of thing at the same moment.
we're the bouncing modern myth show. Get on YouTube. Yeah. So what I was gonna say was. The thing you mentioned, I'm going to go back and delete that part so I don't go is the game, right? This game. What's the story behind why you playing this game? What do you want out of it? And it's almost structured in a way that's, I don't know if it's commercialism or what it is, but it seems to vampirically suck dry the passion and the purpose out of these commodities to mass produce something that I don't know if it's not going to challenge you, but it's going to keep it superficial enough or entertain you.
Yes.
And yes, TikTok bans unoriginal content for however they deem fit, but nothing's original. We've talked about that a lot, where
Right.
every time I come up with the best way to say this, the most original concept, I read it in a book. And I go, curse you, history. You
Right.
know, I'm not going to fabricate anything that's groundbreaking, but I might communicate it in a way that's unique enough to impact somebody. And
Right.
that's what brings me confidence. And I have to believe that because of, as you said, people in my life who I've had physical contact with, actual face-to-face or one-on-one internet connection with, have said it matters that I have a voice or you have a voice, and you can't be silenced by a algorithm,
Right.
by a human invention that suppresses what, for whatever reason, I don't even know why it does. And so for me to wrestle with that, it doesn't do my mental health any good.
Yeah.
But it does make me reevaluate things. And I always reevaluate to quitting. That's my, I think, way to go. But before I quit, I have to have those conversations. And so I'm trying to really, in this last part of the year, figure out my next year plan. What am I going to do with this? What am I going to produce? What am I going to create? And how do I put in the work at 80% to establish those things? Not marrying to January 1st, Modern Myth rebrand, you know. But I need to get to that point where I've been doing this for a year or two, but now I'm restarting.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing that business planning of, you know, what is your vision? How are you going to focus in? Because being broad is great, but the benefit for you and me, the story that I think both of us can do well to listen to, maybe our message isn't ingrained in our heart pure enough that we are ready to speak to the masses in certain ways.
And that could very well be. I mean, it is. I think you're right. We're working some of that stuff out as we go. And I think this is true for most successful people, is that you don't see the hard work that went into getting them to the point where they became an overnight success.
Right.
You just don't. I mean, and because there was years of, or months, maybe years of those people doing exactly what you're doing right now, which is like going back and forth, iterating. And that's what I think that's where I distinguish between quitting and iterating. Because what I've seen you do over the last few years is not quit, but iterate. You've iterated different ways of doing something based on evaluating, are things working, or is this the proper way to go? But you have always circled around some of the same ideas. I mean, I would look at quitting as saying like, well, I'm giving up media altogether and I'm going to go make dresses for a living, which is that's a big jump. But like, I think I see what you're doing is an iterative process, and what we're doing is an iterative process. It really is. I mean, I started out as a triathlon coach, and I quit that, and now I'm doing something on fear and flow, and even looking at flow, it's just like, well, how do I iterate that next? Is it really freedom, or what is it? What are we looking at? And that's really really it. And I think you're absolutely right. Most of the messages that are shared in personal development right now are not new messages, and we've talked about this before. They've been around since the days of the Stoic philosophers. We're sharing the same things. We're just sharing them in a different rhythm, and they're in a different way, using our own voice. And our voice is what's powerful, and that gets right back to what is the story you're telling. It's not much different from the stories that are told everywhere, but those stories come from us. And weirdly, we're fighting wars in this world right now over multiple nations that wrote the same story just using their own voice. It's the same story, and they fight wars over it. So the messaging, the story is important, to your point, regardless of if it's original content or not,
Well, yeah, interpretation. Even Christianity as a religion, same book.
Yeah.
A lot of different interpretations of that book, and a lot of different ways of living it out, and there's division within that because we are wired for what? Conflict.
Right.
And connection. This is the big difference in storytelling. There's internal conflict and there's external conflict. And what we do is we confuse the fact that our conflict at our highest good to get there is internal conflict. It's not out here. It's not external conflict, but it's a lot easier for me to have the external conflict. And by conflict, I mean blame. I'm going to accuse this as the problem that holds me back versus the internal conflict of the negative story I've been telling myself for 39 years. Mm-hmm. This is I got distracted because my daughter's getting a knife.
That's a good reason to get distracted.
Okay, go. You're good. Carry on. Yeah, make your noise. You're going to grab spoons and start doing this. Like, now you're just being like Maddie.
Oh, man, I broke my pen. Crap.
Oh, man.
Dad, nabbit.
Oh, shucks. Damn it. I was on the wrong page. That was perfect. I broke my pen. Okay.
We could do it again. I broke my pen.
Wait. Oh, okay. It's applause. I thought it was laughter.
I love it.
I don't have a laugh track.
You don't have a laugh? What?
It's a record scratch.
Oh, damn it. What? Ah, man. Now I'm having equipment envy.
Okay.
That works.
Would that work if I was doing that? If I got to a really passionate point, say the conflict is internal, it's not external. We have to focus on ourselves. It's just when I'm feeling really insecure, I can just hype myself up.
That's right. We want our freedom.
We want to be free. But there is no such thing as freedom unless you're internally free. So we have some opportunities there. External conflict, internal conflict. Yes, that's what I was talking about. And this is going to be a weird show because I keep getting distracted with my toys.
Just keep it in.
Editing.
What the hell?
A nightmare of an edit. Okay, and then so the story that we're telling yourself, this is interesting because it ties in with the overnight success and what overnight successes tell themselves as a story. They deal with a lot of internal conflict. When you look at certain people, you can look at their backstory and be like, that was a lot of internal reaction to external stimulus. And that's all we are, is the sum total of our reactions to these external or internal stimulus. And there's this new artist. I say new because he's an overnight success. I think last year, Ren, his name is R-E-N. This is the...
Was he partnered with Stimpy?
No, I wish, right?
Okay.
He also had a song called Screech.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, he's got a lot of 90s references.
Oh, okay.
So he actually has a song called 1990s.
Yeah.
He is the
I'll
most
listen
talented.
to him later. That's right.
That's his next album. He's the most talented artist I've ever seen.
Huh.
And I'm saying musically, cinematically. He is essentially who if I was an artist, would want to be.
Yeah.
And he came out of nowhere and it like just blew me away. But he's been doing it for 11 years. And the thing I noticed, he's gone through autoimmune disease, he's gone through psychosis and major depression and hospitalization. He was a few minutes late to saving his friend who committed suicide on a bridge. Like, there's just tremendous tragedy and difficulty that he's fought through, but he's never given up, even when he wanted to. He's so driven.
Right.
He's been doing this. And when you look at the videos from 11 years ago, it's the same guy. He's just gotten better. And when he wrote a good song 11 years ago that never made it anywhere, and it's really good, still holds up today, he kept writing and he kept performing. And now he's at a place where all of that 10 years of work set him up for this 1 year explosion where he's never been on the radio, but he went #1 in the United Kingdom. That's where he's from. He's in Canada now for
you lost me there. No. Just no.
Canadians. Canada. We're not getting political. We're getting Ren. All right. So what I wanted to say was watching him and looking at his progress, I can look at a snapshot of what you just said earlier was what I'm doing is reiterating. Mm-hmm. I'm not giving up. And he is reiterated. I mean, he's a gifted guitarist, gifted. I say gifted because he might have a natural acumen to music, because I believe that's a thing, but he's worked his ass off to get to where he is.
Yeah.
He makes his own beats. He raps. He has incredible word schemes. They're so deep and meaningful. He's the illest of our time because he's sick. And if you look at all of his lyrics, it sounds like hip hop or like, gangster kind of stuff or whatever. But it all works if you think about it from mental health and physical illness. And it's fascinating the way he does it. And so you can't look at him as a superficial artist. There's so much double entendre. There's so many levels to the way that he weaves his stories together. And he also cares so much about cinematography that he's got these hip hop songs. He writes his own beats. He produces his own music in his room, no label, doing some of the best music I've ever heard because it's a story. And he also has ones that are like Broadway stage plays, one-man shows. And the story crafting in there is insane. And it's like whatever he wants to do. He did, Rasta music mixed with hip hop on the streets busking. And it's like nothing. He can do any genre, classical music on the piano, and it's amazing. But he's been that way ever since he started performing 11 years ago. And I look at myself and I'm like, in 11 years, am I going to say that about myself? When I look back at my old videos, is Eric the 2008 iteration there, or the 2014? I'm like, yeah, he is. I can still see that thread that weaves through all of the iterations. And my needs and my desires, they don't change that much because they're still pretty much there. It's just that I feel unsuccessful in them. But every time I feel unsuccessful, I'm able to learn from that because my story has been one that's like the Phoenix. In tarot, you have a birth card, two birth cards based on your birth date and year. And mine is the Emperor and Death. And in tarot, death is death and rebirth. It's losing something so you can become anew. The Emperor is the one who is the man, the balanced, measured, assertive, emotionally controlled, compassionate, but firm man. He is the epitome of what a man should be in their fullness. So it's that and the death card. So my life really has been mirrored in a cycle of death and rebirth. And every death feels like a failure, but every rebirth feels like an aha.
Yeah.
And as long as that thread continues, I'm going to be okay. And it's accepting that, but also not marrying myself to the depression, to the downward spiral, and craving that because I've wallowed in that.
Sure.
And that's a fire you don't want to touch for long. Neither is the highest of heights, because then all of a sudden you forget about that jester that's going to poke fun at you because you're not all that great. You're still just a regular old human being. So take yourself down a peg or two. And that's one of the things that I value about our friendship is we have both of those. We have the humor and we have the support to be like, no, you're doing something worthwhile, whether it's making me laugh or giving me a way to look at something that I haven't thought about because I've been studying it and it just wasn't resonating. And then you say one sentence. I'm like, oh yeah. Has someone said it before? Probably in some way. But all I care about is that you gave me the gift in that moment. And to me, that's wonderful. It shouldn't be suppressed.
Yeah. Even our friendship iterates, but it doesn't die.
That's right.
Never dies. I mean, I think that, and so when you're talking about Ren being the same music as he did 11 years ago, are you saying it's the same quality, same performance, or has he grown since then?
Grown. The same smile, the same passion. He's still talented, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's evolved.
Right. Okay.
But who he is, what the songs were, are the same now, just like I think elevated.
So he's the result of the discipline that he's put in over the last 11 years with maintaining that passion but the music may not be the same, but his talent, his music is iterated, but the talent, the performance, who he is, it still is remain the same.
Yeah, and to your point, I think that's what flow gets you. He's so connected to that he has freedom to do whatever he wants because he's not worried about the record label. He's not worried about the metrics that are going to rise and fall. I mean, he has done something no one's done, which is get a #1 hit without being on the radio and stuff. So he's achieved certain things, and that's my only fear for him is that as that star rises, will he lose some of that, or is he going to be staying connected to that which got him there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I think
Yeah.
if he's connected to flow, he'll still, because you won't want to give that up, right? You don't want to give up your freedom to just be so connected to what you're doing that everything you do works, because you're still making music. It's just you're not slave to one specific style.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and I'll put myself out there vulnerably too. Like I've recently had a surge of going to different concerts and getting this urge again to like be like, I want to get on stage and play music again. I have always been thrilled of like learning different instruments and had that natural talent, but also have that gift of like wanting to be disciplined with it. I've played music all my life, and it's like I have that. And yeah, as I kind of looked at that, as I've been playing music, I look at flow in a bit of a different way. Flow is not a constant. I mean, just like we experience fear, we don't experience fear all the time. We experience it in waves, right? I mean, it's the same as true for flow. You can't have flow all the time. And as I said earlier, flow is preceded by a period of struggle. And I think we're always going through that microcycle of struggle, flow, release, struggle, flow, release. That's really the cycle of flow. So getting through that struggle is really embracing it and understanding that we might not always be in the flow. I tried playing music last night, and this was the whole point. I mean, like I was like, sometimes I'll pick up the guitar and I'll just be playing. It'll be great. I'll sing awesomely. I could not find rhythm for the life of me last night. I could not sing, but one thing I did today was I went through my phone, which I picked up because I couldn't be away with it, and I wanted to put it in my pocket and experience those phantom rings. And I went through my recordings because I was like, one of the things that came out of these recent, I'm like, I want to write some songs. I want to just start writing songs again. And so I went throughout my history of the last 15 years of just recordings, and I realized, holy cow, because I knew that over the last decade or so that I've been like occasionally like I'll think of a song and I'll just record it on my phone just to make sure it sticks. And I was going through it. I have like 30 songs that like are just like the startings of songs that I never finished, because I've always told myself the story that like, well, musicians, like they don't make rent, that's like not a thing, so it's like I never continued with it. But it's like now it's like, but why not? Look at all this other stuff I've done. I love playing music. Why don't I do more of it?
Right.
Because it doesn't make money or it doesn't make a living. So why do I think that podcasting is going to do the same thing, or speaking or what have you? It will, but I love music. Why not do that too? Why not? Mm-hmm. Something you love and so it's like, because I'm telling myself that the quality of my content is shit. Like the quality of my music is shit or anything like that. But is it though? It's like if I worked on it with discipline. So that was a pretty powerful thing. I think that there's a tie-in to just this idea that when we want to find things that we want to do, we are our own worst enemy in that, by telling ourselves that we can't do it. And I think that flow piece that you were talking about, we get into that struggle, which is the first part of flow. The first critical part of getting into flow is struggle. We get in the struggle and we wallow there. Instead of getting through it, instead of doing what we have to do to get through the struggle and move forward, we just wallow there and we say, no, I'm not going to do this. The best way to get through that struggle, I think, is to tap into that 5% rule, that challenge skills sweet spot, where you can like challenge yourself just a little past your comfort zone. And that's where you kind of emerge out of it. You start growing into flow. Yeah, so we have to go through the struggle before we can get into flow.
That's what the signal for growth is, discomfort and struggle. And I like to think of frustration too, that I get really frustrated and that's where the struggle starts, or that's the flavor of struggle, because I think struggle comes in many flavors, and knowing what flavor you're experiencing kind of maybe dictates what you need to do.
Right.
And this idea of being in this frustration with social media, with expanding reach, even let's say I have my message secured and I know exactly what I want to speak on for my webinar, for my 8-week course or whatever. If I get frustrated, that's because I don't have information. And so I need to go find that information. And I think that's pretty key in whether it's searching for a class to learn about something, or it's outsourcing a part of my social media management, or it's you looking at, why can't I do the music? Like, I'm frustrated because I'm not doing what I love, but I keep attaching it to money, which is important. But how does that all work when I'm not making money at this, whatever it is? So what's different if I put more time into this? And ultimately it elevates me to a point where I have more energy and passion to make this other thing work. Cause I do believe that factors in too. I'm a lot happier when I'm in jiu-jitsu. I'm a lot more able to do other things and have time for other things because I've filled that cup up. How am I using my body and how am I stimulating my mind to write this life story? And jiu-jitsu has been a huge frustration and struggle and a gift to me because it's at least twice a week I'm struggling. I'm reflecting every class. And some days I forget to reflect, but on jiu-jitsu days I do not forget to reflect. On my modern myth days, I do not forget to reflect. So I'm personally building a framework, a system in my life to guarantee that I will reflect. And the big challenge about what you and I are doing, as I mentioned before, was we're trying to highlight internal struggle.
Yeah.
Social media is not the place where you go to be reminded that you're struggling, that your success is great, but ask yourself, are you really truly happy and fulfilled? Or are you escaping through what the world will deem successful? And when your passion and your calling is to reveal that to people, Carl Jung said it, and I forget how he said it, but it was brilliant. But he said it's a miserable condition, essentially, to know what is holding someone back and accept the fact that they will never understand the words that you say, and they'll look at you like you're crazy. I don't have the credentials. I don't have the doctorate. I don't have 20 years of experience, but somehow my words tend to reflect the same thing that the psychologist will say because I've lived an experience and I've studied the same books, but I don't have credibility. And even if I did, to then reach out to someone who doesn't want what I have to offer, it's futile. And I learned that lesson. That was the first frustration point, was you can't help anyone who doesn't want to help themselves.
Yeah.
And when you accept that, maybe you can help some people. And so when we talk, I have a lot of me statements. Talk about myself because the best I can do here is help myself by talking about what I've learned and hoping that it inspires someone else to have that conversation with themselves. And maybe if you have that conversation with yourself, then we can have a conversation, and I can have we statements and I can have you statements. But if I start hurling out you statements and start teaching you what you need to do or what human society does, you might not listen to me. You probably won't. But if I can tie in my experience to truth that I've learned, then maybe I show you enough of who I am to build enough trust that I can build something, that I can make an impact. And that is my story that I'm writing now, is constantly reminding myself to buy my own message and to embody my own message. I might have to leave all of this in because it's going to be a really weird edit if you can't hear the silverware in the sink and the dog tap dancing. Cue daddy. I'm really a professional, Adam.
I think it makes it authentic. I think it does. I mean, the dishes.
I'm in my kitchen,
You're
man.
dishing out. You are dishing out gold, my friend.
That's right. Gold pizza.
That's right.
And the takeaway is
You
that
are
my children
tapping into everybody's collective emotions there, brother.
I am tapping into the sink. My children put the silverware in the sink. And that, my friend, I can tell myself two stories. You're ruining my podcast. Or, hey, my kids are listening. And
That's
they're
right.
cleaning up after themselves.
Right.
Every moment, that's tongue in cheek, but that is exactly what I'm talking about, that every situation in our life can have an empowering meaning or takeaway or a disempowering one.
Yeah.
And that situation, it's rattling in a sink while I'm recording a podcast in my kitchen because the basement is a remodel. Whoa, what reality am I living in where I don't think that the bleed over is going to occur? And if I can't be flexible enough to adapt to that and roll with it and have a little bit of humor and also find like, oh, that's actually cool. Like, there's not going to be a mess for me to have to go clean up later.
Right. Yeah.
Which way sounds like a better way to live? Which way sounds more empowering and more freeing? You know? But we want perfection.
Totally.
110% rule says, I want it all.
That's right. Right now. Everything right now.
I want it all. I want it all. And I want it now. All right. Well, that's going to bring this episode to a close. It's really great to be back in action with you, Adam. Life, it takes its twists and turns, and sometimes, you know, we can't make these things happen, but I'm always happier when we can. So it's great to have you back on the show, Adam.
Great to be back, sir. Great to be back. It was a challenging few weeks there, but good to be back.
Yes, yes.
And until next time, journey well, my friends.